Good morning, everyone. How are you this fine January morning? Rodney,
Good
how are
morning.
you
Good
doing?
morning.
K. Carl?
Can,
K.
can
Carl
you hear
can't
me?
hear us.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm
Uh-oh.
doing good, but it looks like K. Carl can't
I
hear
can't hear
us. I
anybody.
think we can hear
We
you.
hear you just
We
fine.
hear
Now,
you.
now I hear you. We're good. We're good.
There
All
we
right, good,
go.
good. It just took a moment. Just a little delay there.
Happy New Year's, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Yeah, it's our first time with you
Yeah.
in the new year. I'm sure we have a lot to talk about. Yeah.
We're off and rolling.
Yep, and Carrie's with us this morning. Good morning, Carrie. Thank you for joining us. And I'm sure we'll have a few others signing on again soon. K. Carl, I'm so glad you're with us to start the new year because I have a lot of questions for you.
Well,
I'm really excited about what you're doing, but I know that there's probably some people watching this, maybe for the first time, who have no idea who you are and what you've been doing. So let's kind of recap just a little bit.
mhm.
So the way I met K. Carl was coming to hear. I wasn't specifically coming to hear K. Carl speak because I actually didn't even know he was going to be there,
Yeah,
and he turned out to.
I was a
Yeah,
last minute add on for sure.
yeah,
But
but
a great one. But a great one.
he was because he left such a favorable impression on me that I made
Mm-hmm.
sure to get his contact information afterwards and said, I want to see if we can have you on at the time my show, which was Southern Digest. And it turned out so great. I was like, yeah, I want to have you come back. And now that we're here on the This Way Network, I definitely wanted to have you here because I wanted more people to hear what you were talking about, what I heard you talk about, and also what you've been doing since then. So, and specifically, what I heard you talk about, for one thing, you talked to me about, talked to us about the book you had written. Let me see if I can get that in the right place. So, Frederick Douglass Republicans, the movement to reignite
Wow.
Americans' passion for liberty, which had
Mm.
me very excited and really liked what you had to say in that. So, could you kind of, in a nutshell, give everyone the gist of that book,
Yeah,
why it's about Frederick Douglass, and how you came to that?
yeah. Frederick Douglass, in my view, is America's greatest writer, thinker, speaker, philosopher, thought leader when it comes to liberty, human rights, and the U.S. Constitution. A man who was a former slave, well, who was a slave for 20 years, and ended up being a
Wow.
1% in terms of his income. He had $300,000 when he passed away in savings back in 1895. His life is inspiring, and his literary legacy that he left us is informative. He wrote about free speech, the importance of free speech,
Mm-hmm.
religious liberty, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, uh, parental choice when it comes to school choice. He wrote about legal immigration. He wrote about women's rights as pertains to women's suffrage. He wrote about respect for the Constitution, respect for life.
Mhm.
All these tenets of liberty that's being attacked today, Frederick
Mhm.
Douglass wrote about them and he lived it. So when you leverage the liberty message of a former slave, it it it's impactful upon people because they cannot call him a racist. He was a victim of racism. He was a slave. They can't call him that he was a slave owner. No, he was a slave. So when you
Mhm.
read the writers of this former slave, unless you've been stirring up the Kool-Aid and making it yourself for people to drink, you're going to have an awakening about the importance of our republic, of our
Mm-hmm.
country, the greatness of the founding fathers, although they had issues, how
Mhm.
America is exceptional because America was founded based on our God-given rights. And Frederick Douglass wrote and spoke about those things. So Frederick Douglass, in my view, he is the common ground that we should focus on to help save our republic and bring racial healing to our nation. He's the answer.
So now, in what way do you feel like that will bring racial healing?
Well, when you focus on values, the title of the book is Frederick Douglass Republican, meaning that as a Frederick Douglass Republican, to be one is not based on color. It's based on values, because values unite. What are those values we embrace? Well, the things that I mentioned before that Douglass wrote about: respect for the U.S. Constitution, respect for life, the belief in economic prosperity, free speech, school choice, the right of people keeping bear arms, legal immigration. So when you leverage what Frederick Douglass said about each one of them, that's the common ground. Frederick Douglass is the embodiment of the common ground that we seek to help save our nation, because he lived it, he wrote it. And that's why we got to leverage him to save our republic.
Now, what do you mean by leverage him?
We got to leverage his writings. We got to take his literary legacy, the things he wrote about, and we got to educate people what Douglass said over 100 years ago, because his writings, those values he articulated, they stand the test of time. So we got to leverage it. We got to use it. We just can't quote the founding fathers. You got to quote Frederick Douglass and see what Douglass wrote about him. Because see, founding fathers gave us a magnificent document, but none of them were slaves. They owned slaves, some of them, but none of them were slaves. Douglass was a slave. And in his speeches, he affirmed the founding fathers and he affirmed the U.S. Constitution. That's what those who want to transform America to a European socialist country, Marxism, don't have an answer for. Frederick Douglass is a divine fit for saving this nation if we understand the importance of leveraging him and viewing him as a philosopher, as a thought leader. See, the problem, a lot of people don't think Douglass is a major thought leader when it comes to liberty, the U.S. Constitution. They always want to refer to the founding fathers. No, the answer is Douglass, because Douglass did something the founders didn't do. Douglass was a slave.
That's
and
powerful.
It resonates. Yeah. You can't
K.
quite.
Carl, do you believe that the Republicans of 2023 need to take, Frederick Douglass and go by his playbook?
Most definitely, because these Republicans you're referring to, they need to throw their playbook out the window. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It's not going to work, because you can't continue to do the same things you've been doing for 40 years and think you're going to get better. I mean, look, there was no red wave nationally. Florida did pretty good, but there was no red wave. If you cannot defeat Biden with a terrible economy, what he did to those people he left behind in Afghanistan, all these things were running, and his favoritism was low, and you can't win, you have a messaging problem. Not a message problem, it's a messaging problem, because I've been doing this for 15 years now? I've been telling Republicans this for 15 years. You got to understand, you have a messaging problem. Until you recognize that, you will not win. And now it's come to fruition. If they don't embrace Frederick Douglass, forget about it. Forget about it. Because if you can't, the biggest thing that has to happen, you have to prove and show that you're not a racist, because that's what the left does. Until you do that, I'm not going to listen to a racist or somebody I perceive to be one. So you got to win that propaganda battle. You got to win it. If not, it's over with. It's over with. That's what's going on. So yes, we must leverage the life and writings of Frederick Douglass. We must stop using the word conservative. That word's been demonized. You tell somebody you're conservative, you just grew 7 heads. You tell somebody you're black conservative, that's what they hear. But what you hear, well, that's what you're saying. But what they're hearing is, oh, you're a black conservative, you're a black racist. I'm a Reagan conservative. Oh, you're a Reagan racist. I'm a Constitution conservative. Oh, you're a racist. We got to get rid of the word and come up with something else that's going to bring unity. Okay? And it's not going to happen under the banner of that label conservative. It's not going to happen. It's not happening. So yes, I give you a long version of my answer, but you are definitely right. It'd be foolish of us not to leverage the life and the liberty message of Frederick Douglass.
And you also said that Frederick Douglass was, he was very successful in business and looking at today's society. And when you're looking into many of the different societies here in America you know, the challenging work ethic. There's a lot of people who just, you know, they were saying that when COVID hit and then they started, you know, getting money and things, there was a lot of people who literally said, I don't want to go back to work. I'd rather just stay at home. I mean, literally that became a huge problem here in the state of California because they were saying people just did not want to go back to work. They had kind of manipulated their life to be able to work within this financial box. And they were like, oh, I don't want to go. And it took a lot to get people cranking. And then again, there are a lot of people who did want to get back to work. Yeah. And so it's a very fine balance. But how do you see that, you know, the Frederick Douglass message being relayed to the youth of today? How could that message help the youth of today?
I think the answer to that is, of course, is the life of Douglass, because a lot of people today are put in victim categories and they see themselves as the victim. So when you actually study and read about the life of Frederick Douglass, you're going to quickly discover that no matter which victim category that people try to put you in, no American today can out-victimize Frederick Douglass. Right. And one of Douglass' favorite speeches that he gave is entitled Self-Made Man. In that speech, Douglass laid out his action plan for success. And he talked about the value of work. And he taught the value of applying yourself. And so while I think what a lot of kids are going through, and the reason why they embrace this nanny statehood, take care of me, they've never been inspired and taught the life-empowering lessons of Frederick Douglass because the success strategy that worked for a slave can also work for a free person if you apply yourself.
Wow.
And that's why Douglass is so key.
Now we've got
Douglass, I always say Frederick Douglass was born below poverty. See, when you're born into slavery, that's below poverty.
Right.
He was raised by his mother. When Douglass was born, his mother lived and worked on a plantation that was 12 miles away. So he didn't have a single mother. He had a single grandmother. His grandmother actually raised him. Then she died when Douglass was 10. So there's no one today who can out-victimize this brother. So if that's the case, then start focusing on Douglass' action plan. To me, Douglass wasn't a genius. He just applied himself. He applied himself. He took his God-given gifts. He took his God-given talents. He took his obsession and he made it a profession. That's all he did. It's all about application. And that's what we got to teach our children. We got to help them to discover their gifts. And then when you discover your gifts and your gifts are in line with God's purpose for your life, back in my motivational speaking days, I say, then money got to chase you. You don't have to chase it. Money will chase you down and subdue you because your passion is now aligned with your purpose that God has given you. And God has to pay child support.
Okay, Carl, you and your brother have a fantastic charter school that you guys have headed up and have been doing some pretty powerful things. And I recall on one of our past shows, you were saying that you even had programs that went after the youth of a particular area that were the bottom of the bottom, at the lowest grade point average. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Majority of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math programs across the country are not all inclusive. You have children from disadvantaged communities that have barriers. Maybe they can't pay the tuition, they can't pay the fees, they may have transportation problems to get there. They may have some mental health issues you got to deal with before you can start teaching them. So those create barriers. So what we decided to do with our STEM program, we focus on the students who have barriers and remove those barriers. And once you remove those barriers for those disadvantaged students, now you have an all-inclusive program. Most STEM programs do not do that. They don't address the barriers. So when my brother started recruiting for his robotics clubs, he went around every he found the feeder system to Jemison High School in Huntsville, Alabama. All these schools are Title I schools. When he went to the elementary school and the middle school, even to the high school, every class, he had 3 criteria. He said, I want the child that's failing. Give me the child that's getting straight F's.
Wow.
Then he said, give me the child that has one or both parents incarcerated. Then give me the child that's in special needs. He said, you all probably diagnosed them to have Asperger, and you treat them like they're retarded. And Doug, he said, my brother, I don't care about labels. Give me those students. And that's who made up his team. And then he brought in STEM professionals, STEM professors from Alabama A&M, UAH, Oakwood College. He brought in STEM students from Alabama A&M, UAH, Oakwood College. And those are the ones who start mentoring and teaching the children. And because of that, the children, when they competed in the 2019 First Robotics competition in Huntsville, Jemison High School Robotics Club finished number 1 in the city of Huntsville, number 1 in Madison County, and number 2 in the state of Alabama. These children who have been written off, they defeated STEM-focused magnet schools that they can't even get in because of grades and because of behavior problems. So
I love that.
My brother broke the paradigm shift. He shattered it. That's not supposed to happen. And the reason why I say these kids have been written off, I just recently read a statistic. Well, it's not a statistic, just the truthful story. In order to determine the future prison population in America, the so-called experts, they look at 3rd grade achievement scores. Well, these students that we're focusing on have been written off, and we don't want them to become a statistic.
Okay, Carl, this is something that I'm part of a group that's out of Richmond, Virginia, and we are in the process of putting together a 30-city e-gaming competition. And a lot of times people think, well, why are kids playing games? That's just a waste of time. But we are going to use this as an opportunity to be able to introduce the kids into coding, cybersecurity, so many other things. And we would really welcome your program to be a part of that. When we come into your area, they're planning to do a demo day here in Southern California, which I'll be a part of. And they're going to do it at a place called Imperial Gardens, which was the most notorious housing project of all of Los Angeles. At one point, it was so bad the police wouldn't even go in there.
Imperial Gardens is the name.
Imperial Gardens, and let me tell you something. It was incredible. It was a very, very bad area, but they literally went in and then they built a police substation and turned it around. And so we're planning on going in here in the next few weeks and being able to do an e-gaming competition. And our goal is to be able to put together a great partnership, hopefully with Sony, because of the Sony PlayStation and the game.
Yes.
But it's also to tap into the different ancillary markets within Sony, because there is, the camera division and all the other technology and sound, video. So hopefully this will be able to open the youth's eyes up, and these programs like yours, these are the type of things that we're going to do and join across the country. And so, I mean, it's incredible. What are your thoughts, Nina? You're deep in thought.
I am deep in thought. Actually, I've got several questions floating through my head. One of them, I'm curious, K. Carl, it's you talked about the robotics team being 2019. That's 3 or 4 years ago. Where are those kids now?
Some of those children, I know 2 or 3 of them got scholarships. There's one young lady, I don't know what classification she's in now, but she got a scholarship. She's majoring in physics at UAH. Another young man is in mechanical engineering. Now, keep in mind now, these are children who were failing.
Right.
One man, he has a scholarship, I think, mechanical engineering at Alabama A&M. There are others who did not pursue it in the career of STEM, but they're being successful in what they're doing. Because what we do with them, like you said, we use STEM to awaken them and to take education seriously. We don't necessarily make them, encourage them to go STEM. We introduce the technology to them. But all we're doing basically, Matt, I don't think we want to go into science. You want to go to law. We teach them how to apply the scientific method to their life.
Mm-hmm.
How to become a critical thinker. How to collect data. How to analyze the data.
Right.
You got to do that when it comes to voting, kind of thing.
Right.
So that's the part what we do. Is even though we're STEM focused in our curriculum, we're not pushing children towards STEM if that's not their cup of tea. But what we are doing, starting early, is to introduce them to the scientific method and make it second nature to them. And I mentioned my brother started those robotics clubs at the elementary school, but we're teaching STEM in daycare. My brother, he's going to daycares, introducing STEM, so they can get on the iPad, keystroke their name and things like that. Because the problem with STEM, we don't have a pipeline. And to start the pipeline, you can't go to 8th graders and start there. You're too late.
Too late, yeah.
You got to go to daycare.
Right.
You can't go to 2nd grade. That's too late. You got to go to daycare.
Carl, that's why there is the HUD STEM Innovation Networks. And so that's a group that is working closely with HUD and the White House to make sure that these programs go 0 to 5 and then 5 to 12 and beyond. And so we are going to work with wonderful organizations like yours to be able to accomplish that. Go ahead, Nina. I know you got more questions. Go ahead, Nina.
We're excited about that, Rodney.
Yes, sir.
Well, one thing I'm particularly excited about, Carl, is many times that programs I see, particularly, pardon me for saying it, but it's just my observation, particularly from the government, tend to target on a racial basis, target children on a racial basis. I love that your program, what you were doing, targets children on the basis of need.
Yeah.
That's right.
The fact that they were the ones who had the least amount of help because nobody expected them to do well.
Yeah, a lot of people think when you say disadvantaged, you're just talking about Black folks.
No, there's a whole lot of disadvantage.
Yeah,
that's right.
And to me, that's racist.
That is racist. And it's unfortunate. I had to explain that to someone that's very influent who still could be a potential donor. He said it look like you're just focusing on one segment of your community. I said, explain what you mean by that. I said, I'm insulted that you asked that question because that's not what disadvantage means. But we start in those communities to remove the barriers so we can have an all-inclusive program. Once you remove the barriers, now you move to all-inclusiveness. But you got to focus on those who have the barriers first. For us, it doesn't work the other way around. You got to start, because a rising tide lifts all boats, is a thought we have.
Exactly. The whole community.
That's right.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if any kind of ism that exists, it's really classism.
Now explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, racism is not the problem. It's classism. It's poor Hispanics, poor whites, poor blacks, poor yellow, brown, whatever. It's classism. Those who are in that lower class, those who, regardless of color, they're the ones who don't have access to rigorous STEM. Right. It's all about accessibility. And it doesn't matter. You got whites, blacks, Latinos, they can't afford to get there. They don't have the transportation. So it's not about race at all. It's all about class. That's the biggest discrimination I see.
Powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. So I want to know too, part of what attracted me to the message that you were giving out and what you were doing was the fact that you had a dream going forward about community centers, about a school that you and your brother are building. Give us a status report on both of those things. Where does that stand right now?
Well, what we're doing, and it all started off as an after-school program. And because of our success in the first robotics competition, we were asked to expand our curriculum and programs statewide. So doing that, what we decided to do is to relocate from Huntsville to Birmingham area, which is the center of the state now. And so the first part of this is to establish a STEM urban community headquarters where we'll be the centerpiece. and we'll have satellite locations in the rural and urban areas of the state. But the hub will be in the Birmingham area as part of this STEM recreation center concept. We'll have a school. So, because at this STEM concept, we're gonna start a science research center. Okay, because my brother's a former NASA scientist.
Wonderful.
He ran NASA's lab in Huntsville for several years.
Right.
So he's going to bring his expertise along with other PhD physicists and scientists who've already agreed to join us to have this science research center and develop this rural urban STEM headquarters. So we can then hit these locations with satellite locations in project areas in the rural areas. Yeah.
So now these people working with you, are they relocating to Birmingham as well? And for those of you who don't know our state, by the way, because I live in Alabama, Birmingham is about an hour and a half away from Huntsville, where Kay Carl is from originally. So, and where the robotics team first happened. So,
this is still in the preliminary stage, but some of them will be able to put on payroll. Now, our school is not a charter school. We sat down, we thought about hard. It will not be a charter school. It will be a private academy, but we have to have a serious endowment to offer scholarships. So I'm actually traveling the country now, raising money we have ambitious goal for an endowment. And what we like about the endowment, the money goes in that endowment. I can't touch it. And after I leave and pass away, that money's still there and the program can still go on. And so, raise money for this endowment to make sure this concept, this program, is there for the long term.
I love that.
And one of the main features of our school that people really like, you may find this interesting, Rodney. We have created not only a STEM curriculum, but we also created a Frederick Douglass Liberty curriculum, where we're going to train and teach. Starting in elementary school, the concepts of liberty, the importance of Constitution, civics training, education based on the liberty message of Frederick Douglass. There'll be some other great writers in there, but it's going to be heavily infused with the liberty message of Frederick Douglass to counter those children and generations who've been indoctrinated into Marxism, which is total opposite of Frederick Douglass's.
Right.
Wonderful.
So, Kay Carl, you're traveling the country right now with this message to raise money for the community centers and the school.
Yes.
That you're going to be building. Where will you be next?
I'm headed to Florida next week.
Okay.
I'm in Connecticut the week after that. The week after that, I'm back in Florida. And this, I think for the next 6 weeks, I'm traveling every week. Places Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas. Those things.
And when you're down in Florida, whereabouts in Florida will you be?
This trip, I'll be in a place called Sebring, Florida. Then I shoot over to Naples.
Okay.
Florida.
Naples, Florida.
Wonderful.
Okay. Good. If any of you are from that area that are watching this right now, please be sure to take the time to find out where Kay Carl is going to be specifically. Next time we have you on.
Let me just give them my email address, okay?
That would be awesome.
My email address is very simple. You see my name there is Kay Carl, KCARL 57, KCarl57 at outlook.com, and shoot me an email and I'll let you know what my schedule is. I don't broadcast my calendar for security reasons. I can tell you later if you want to, but I love to share that with you. We got to grow this. We got to grow this army, if you will, of freedom lovers who know how to become better messengers of liberty. You know, one thing I've come across over the past several months, I've come across a lot of frustrated parents and grandparents who do not know how to awaken and educate their Marxist indoctrinated child or grandchild about the value of liberty. They're not getting in school. Schools have failed us in that regard. So if the parents and grandparents are not teaching it, where are they going to get it? Not everybody can get into Hillsdale College.
Mhm.
And so I'm
Yeah.
learning that. So what we've done, we launched a program, an online course, where we're teaching this whole history of liberty through the eyes of Frederick Douglass. But at the same time, we're empowering the parents and grandparents how to awaken and teach their children and grandchildren about the importance of liberty and how to have conversations with people, not confrontation, when it comes to articulating those liberty-minded values.
Yeah. Yeah.
K. Carl, the time is up. Where did
I
the
can't
time go?
believe
We're
it.
gonna have to have you.
Always,
we're gonna have to
yeah.
have you back again.
Oh,
I'm
brother.
gonna let Nina wrap it up. Thank you so much again for enlightening us again. And Nina, take it away.
All right, two quick things I want to say. The first one is, if you want more of K. Carl, you need to check out my friend Tracy's channel, FBI Unicorn, because K. Carl's testimony basically is going to be premiering this Friday. I just saw it this morning. I'm very excited about that. So check that out. FBI Unicorn is the name of the channel. And as always, y'all, be of good courage. God is with us, and we are not alone.
Amen.